Hailing Frequencies Open, and welcome to Star Trek Discoverage, the live podcast that boldly goes into excruciating detail about this week's episode of Star Trek Discovery. I'm your host, Aaron Coker, a.k.a. Caliban, and you have to hand it to Admiral Vance for not just scrolling to the bottom of the Armistice Agreement and clicking accept. Joining me on the show, as usual, is my co-host. She's also the co-host of the Generations Geek podcast, a more or less family-friendly celebration of geekdom. It's Ella Pearson. Ella, welcome back to Discoverage.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here in, you must know what it is by now, the 22nd week of 23 weeks of Trek. Yes.
Oh, we're so close.
I feel good. I feel strong.
I feel strong. Also, what are we supposed to do after next week? Like nothing on Thursdays?
You take a break, I think. Let's go back to
Twiddling
carbo
our
loading
thumbs?
or whatever the metaphor here is for a marathon. But yeah, like at the beginning of this journey, the first few steps, it was tough along the way, and we've had stumbles. Mm-hmm. But yeah, 23 weeks in, I feel strong. So hopefully nothing bad will happen before next week.
Well, we'll see. New year, all that.
We'll see. That's right. We talk about news at the beginning of the show, and the big news is that it's 2021. Well, we forget 23 weeks of Trek. We made it through 52 weeks of 2020.
Barely. Just made it.
Barely is true, but having Star Trek there for almost half of the year definitely helped out.
You know, it did. It really did.
Another piece of news that I saw, a tiny little piece, just before we move on to talking about the episode, is, you know what Cameo is, right?
Yeah.
It's that thing that all the kids are doing these days. And by kids, I mean middle-aged fans of sci-fi properties. Is you, for people who don't know, it's an app or a service where you buy an appearance, a virtual appearance from a celebrity. You look up them on the app, and then you give them X amount of dollars, and then they deliver a message for you or for a friend or what have you. And apparently,
also the money. Sorry, doesn't a lot of the money go to charity?
I think in a lot of cases it does. Yeah. It's a nice little service. But John Delancey was doing one for a fan. And
oh, no.
In the middle of it, and I don't know who it was for, that was not recorded for posterity in the article that I read, but he announced that as a little stocking stuffer, he said, quote, "You're going to be seeing more of me. Cheers. Merry Christmas." And people
need to stop teasing me with this.
Yeah, people are taking that as more of Q coming up on some version of Broadcast Trek.
Every week when something mysterious happens, I'm like, it's Q. Like, roll the tears. I'm so excited. And every week it's like, I'm the guardian of, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's okay. Fun. Good job. Like, fun. Never mind.
Yeah, right. Have him get into
Oh
a
my
fight
God.
with the Guardian, with Carl. But, yeah, that was a hint from him. And, I think people, I don't know, I feel people have gone back and forth, or I've seen people talk on both sides of whether he should come back. And my thing is, he's around, he's working, bring him back. Like, Q can look however he wants. It doesn't matter that John Delancey is not the young John Delancey from 1987. Just bring him on. That's what I say.
Yeah, well, and I guess maybe I would see saying they're doing too many, they're pulling references too much.
Yeah.
And I would get that, but I would say that, I don't know. I think Q, it always makes for a good, fun episode. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it would just be so enjoyable to see all of our new characters react to him. I don't know. I definitely would prefer, I think, a Q appearance over lots of the other stuff that we've kind of had,
and to see him in a new status quo on a Star Trek show, as we've got in a lot of the new series, TNG's obviously the beginning of Revived Trek, and then I think most of his appearances on Discovery cleaved pretty closely to his TNG appearances. It's like, hey, take us home. Please take us home. Why are you even visiting us? But to have him show up in, the Federation of Picard, or in the 32nd Century, or even bringing him back and doing a full Lower Decks Q episode, Because, yeah, I know, okay, the people on Lower Decks, they all read the logs. They're the biggest TNG fans. They know how Q works, but Q's pretty wily. He's got a lot of tricks, so maybe he's got some tricks that they don't know.
And I feel like I'm so surprised that we didn't get one already on Lower Decks, honestly, because like that's the platform to have a Q episode.
Yeah.
When it's a cartoon and you can do literally anything. Like, that's what I want to see.
It's coming. It's got to be coming for sure.
I mean, I've had my fingers crossed for a while, so hopefully.
Well, keep them crossed. And tonight we are talking about the 12th episode of Star Trek Discovery Season 3 called There Is a Tide. I always feel like I have to wait for that ellipses. And we're here to break it down for you. And before we start, as always, we're setting a course for the Spoiler Zone listeners, so be warned, we're glad you've decided to join us, but if you haven't seen the episode, spoilers are incoming. The official synopsis for There Is a Tide is... After capturing the USS Discovery, Osira seeks a meeting with Admiral Vance while Burnham and the crew must overcome unimaginable odds as they attempt to regain command of their ship. This episode was written by Kenneth Lin. Lin also co-wrote the episode The Sanctuary from this season of Discovery, and he co-wrote that with Brandon A. Schultz. This episode was directed by Jonathan Frakes, who has made quite a little name and a little career for himself on these little new Trek episodes. He's doing a great job. There is a star date for this episode, and he comes from an interesting place. It was not given in dialogue, but it can be seen in the text of the Armistice draft presented to Vance by Osira. And that date is 29141429.1, and it is the longest star date yet presented in the franchise. Here's some facts from our memory banks about this episode. The title of this episode is taken from a line of William Shakespeare's play Julius Caesar. And I was trying to figure out, just before air, which was not enough time, how many Trek episodes and even movies take their titles from Shakespeare. And good luck on that one. It's a lot. It happened, of course, just last year with the two-part finale of Discovery Season 2 with Such Sweet Sorrow. And I actually talked with author Ellen Gratz about Shakespeare in Trek on the last episode of our last season of Enterprising Individuals. So you can find that episode in our show backlog if you're interested in that topic. The relevant passage from Julius Caesar is a line from Brutus that reads, "There is a tide in the affairs of men," I added that one, "which, taken at the flood, leads on to fortune, omitted, all the voyage of their life is bound in shallows and in miseries." And in the play, Brutus is trying to convince his ally Cassius that they should meet Octavian and his forces at Philippi while they have their momentum, despite their losses and the weariness of their army. And of course, Brutus and Cassius lose the battle at Philippi and take their own lives. So it would seem that their desperate gambit was unconsidered. Jury's out so far on the gambits of Burnham and Discovery's crew in this episode just yet. Although I will say last week, I opined that, since it was a Julius Caesar quote, I hope nobody got stabbed, and somebody got stabbed in this episode. Not quite the same context, but there was a stabbing.
I was so mad. I know that this is like a thing. Everyone's always like, don't take the knife out, and it's like a bit where they always do, but I'm like, girl, you could have just, you're bleeding all over the place. Leave it in, right?
Yeah, right.
Leave it in.
Yeah, no kidding. That's something that I don't know if they have TV still in the 32nd century, but it's always you got to pull the knife or the arrow out. You got to get that bullet out because God knows you can't let a bullet stay in you, and so on and so forth. I wonder if there's a conventional wisdom for phaser wounds that we're always seeing, but it's the wrong way to deal with phaser wounds.
Yeah, like it's like how everyone puts like cold water on a burn right away. You're not supposed to. It's like they like ice it and everyone's like, no! They
always cover it up, but you're supposed to air it out. Let it air out. In this episode marks the 800th installment of the Star Trek franchise, from the original series through the animated series all the way to Picard and Lower Decks and the 13 Trek feature films. This is number 800. So congratulations, Trek. That is an unbelievable accomplishment.
That's crazy. I mean, we talk a lot, I feel like, about the lasting power of Star Trek.
Yeah.
But maybe the numbers are starting to speak for themselves,
Yeah, I think they do. They absolutely do. And that's not even counting all the extended media and even fan fiction. And so it's quite an amazing galaxy of content. I feel bad about saying that already, but whatever. Guest stars on this episode. Jake Weber returns as Zara. think that's how I say his name, in the episode. And Janet Kidder, of course, continues in her role as Osira. And Kenneth Mitchell is back on the show in the role of Aurelio. We were wondering last week who the guy with the beard was, and we couldn't figure it out in the trailer for this episode. And we didn't figure that it was Ken Mitchell. Ken has portrayed 3 different Klingon characters on Disco before retiring from the show due to his ALS diagnosis. But he's provided voices for Lower Decks for 3 different characters, and he's back as Aurelio on this show. So welcome back, Ken. And
he was so good.
It was, yeah, you know what? I
really liked him.
Yeah, he's been good as a Klingon, but it's kind of by the dint of, you know, what Klingons are like, a one-note performance, and he had a lot of really great shades, and yeah, he's a great actor. And he's got a Professor X chair, so that helps out. Let's look at our theories really fast. Boy, I wanted to get your opinion on the burn.
Yes.
What did you think about the resolution for that?
So here's the thing. These past couple episodes, like, I'm really enjoying them, but it's like all season we've been looking for the source of the burn, kind of.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're like, this kid did it because he was conceived by the, like, radioactivity, like, in the nebula.
Right.
And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna let that slide by because I was enjoying I enjoyed these past 2 episodes so much.
Yeah.
But I'm a little frustrated about, like, I don't know. I mean, maybe I don't know what the right word is. Like, the overarching plot line I felt like has taken some zigs and zags. Maybe some shortcuts that are a little confusing. So I don't know. The answer is I don't know. I also feel like I come on every week and I'm like, I'm a little confused. So it's like they're calling him a child, but he's 125 and he's the one, he got angry and, like, everything blew up. I'm not super, but
yeah, we haven't yet had or I don't know, maybe the show is satisfied in what it's presented, but I feel like we need the psycho speech. You know, we need the guy to come out at the end and explain everything that we just saw in case we didn't get it.
Yeah, I needed some more, like, pseudoscience, like future science words.
I bet we're going to get more.
And I felt like,
next week.
Because I felt like they were guessing. You know, they're like, weird stuff happens when you're pregnant.
Stuff. Yeah. Yeah, weird stuff. You get all kinds of cravings. Your baby can destroy half the universe. You know how it is.
Yeah. I'm like, if I have a child, if I just stand, like, if I make camp, like, inside of a volcano and I just stay there, like, what could we do?
Volcano, like, baby.
Pompeii Part 2?
Yeah, right.
Like, what?
It's got lava powers. Yeah, I could see that. I've really appreciated and enjoyed the sort of the story momentum that the show has maintained. And also just the political kind of maneuverings and machinations that we've got from Unification 3 onward. And we've continued that into this week. And I think that there was never going to be – I always thought that the burn was more interesting in how it changed the world of the show rather than, like, you know, what caused it. But, you know, they've got to keep a little mystery going. And I think it was a good payoff because even if it's kind of dumb that it's like a kid getting mad or sad – the environment that they find him in, I found to be, you know, fascinating. That he's sort of trapped and raised in this fantasy land. Which it'd be like, what if you locked the door and left Naomi Wildman in Flodder for 100 years? Like, how would she come out? So, yeah, I thought that was a really a cool scenario.
Yeah, it was definitely one I love. You know, I mean, Burnham's scene where she's pretending to be a hollow.
Yeah.
Was amazing. And, like, no, it was amazing. And that's the thing is I'm enjoying it so much. And then there's these little things where I'm like, the payoff for this, like, entire season for me, I don't think is quite there, but I've had such a good time that I feel mean almost complaining because they're really, these last few episodes especially, I've been so impressed. I feel like they're really bringing it. So yeah, I don't know. It's hard. Like, I feel bad, like, criticizing it. I don't know.
Well, I think they've really stretched this year in the terms of what they've presented. And it's hard to see that in the moment. Sometimes you're like, well, I don't really get why they did this. But then later on, it's like, they've really taken this far afield. I should have thought of this last week, but when she's talking to the guy and pretending to be the computer, she reminded me of when Kramer pretends to be Movie Phone on Seinfeld. Why don't you just tell me the name of the movie you'd like to see? That's what it was like for people who were alive when Seinfeld was on. Let's also talk about some other mysteries, like the mystery of Michael leaving the show, which I think we've pretty much confirmed she won't. But she crosses something of a Rubicon tonight, to use Julius Caesar terminology, in her actions regarding kind of acting unilaterally in terms of keeping them there, keeping them in the situation, not leaving to go help Saru and Culber and Adira. And I found myself, this is how we started, isn't it? Like Michael going, no, we're doing this. I know this is the right choice. And she might be right in this situation, but I also felt like if you can just jump away from any point to any point, you could just go back to the nebula. You could, isolate Osira's men from her when she's still, on the Federation base, and throw a monkey wrench into the plan. But her decision is like, no, we need to stay here in this moment and finish whatever this is.
Yeah, it's almost like, I mean, obviously Michael has changed so much, but you're right. It's like she's still making like the decision.
Yeah,
comes down to her. So I don't know. I guess I'm more interested to see like the impact of this episode like next week.
Yeah. I want to see the impact.
Does happen?
Yeah, the impact of her decision on her connection to Stamets.
Well, yeah, that too. Just their relationship. Yeah. But I feel like we haven't seen them together almost at all this season.
Yeah, just the way that they seated in earlier in the episode when he's talking to Aurelio and he's saying like, yes, I have a child. and I'm worried about them. And just the way, knowing that he really does see Adira as, somebody to look after, somebody to protect. And now he can't get to either Hugh or them. And it's like, oh boy. Yeah.
It was so sad. I wish so much that I say this again all the time. I wish so much that we'd had more episodes this season, because I would have loved to see like their relationship grow more.
Yeah.
And like really cement, like seeing them as like a father-child duo. Which again, in every scene that they're both in, that is what's happening. But I wish that we would have had like more time, because that scene was so heartbreaking. But it was also like, we know in theory that Adira and Stamets spend like, at least how many hours is a full-time job on a starship? 40 hours a week together.
Yeah.
In the lab. But something more, I don't know. Obviously it's hard to, that's something that's like, obviously they can't really fix that. They can't change whoever's controlling the amount of episodes isn't on like a creative team. So it's like they have a ton of control over that. But
yeah, it's weird because I guess we're just talking about the show. We're not really even talking about theories. They're all all the chickens are coming home here. But I did want to talk about the conversation and the maneuverings between Osira and Vance, who, I love this kind of stuff, and I especially love when two characters on this show kind of pull back the curtain and just start arguing about like what the show is really about. I'm okay with that. I just wish that we had more of we'd interfaced more with the philosophical and political mind of Vance, who I've been calling Salt and Pepper up until this episode, because he's actually important in this episode, and so now his name's important. And then, like, I wish they hadn't hidden Osira as this villain if we had experienced, because we've definitely seen that she does bad things, and I think the show has pretty much just decided that she can talk nice all she wants, but she's a bad person. I mean, they put the exclamation point on that when she kills Ren, of all people, who didn't deserve that. But having this like discussion, this back and forth, they seem to want to cast Vance as, the establishment, and cast Osira as, the scrappy rebel. There's talk of like this yoke of dilithium that you have us under, you have the control, and we're trying to return control to the people. And it rings false, and it comes at a very weird time in our world history, and certainly our nation's history, when there are a lot of outsider movements who are trying to say the same thing. And just to tell you how people received that or how it was viewed, I have I'm part of like a lot of like left book and like left wing like communist groups on Twitter and different places, and they're all like, yeah, that's when like Vance told her that she could go F herself because the Federation's not going to be capitalist. And I'm like, I don't think that it's quite as black and white as it was being painted. I also don't think it's as deep as the showrunners think they're painting it, but I like seeing those conversations being brought out into the open.
Well, and I like this side of Star Trek that's more like, I feel like politics are so close to the heart of Star Trek and like really what it is, and like like diplomacy, and so we get a lot of like, oh, it's first contact, isn't that exciting? And then when we have these moments that are like actual real like there it's dangerous, and Osira is like, it's not like she showed up for a conference, right? She like hijacked a ship and brought it and was like, you have to talk to me now.
That's how she paints it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had talked about, because somebody had floated that, Admiral Salt and Pepper, I've watched Star Trek, this guy's, he's going to be a bad guy. And I was thinking throughout the entire season that like, I don't know if Osira was going to be good, but I think that we're going to have to, face the fact that maybe we all need to join each other or we can't survive in this new time. And they seem to have kind of done it all because Osira is offering that, but we know that her motives might not be pure. And Vance is, he's being obstinate and holding back when maybe the right thing to do would be say yes. She's got a 15-year plan in her little TOS that she gives him. So like, maybe we let it play out for a while. And if it doesn't work, we can always do the good that we can and then back out. But it's like these both intractable sides of this philosophical debate.
Well, it's also like, how are people going to react if he all of a sudden is like, we're joining forces? Like,
yeah, right. Yeah.
It's going to be so wild. Well, and then he was totally right. Like, I felt like Osira was so focused on like, she feels like she's this huge leader and she created like this thing and it's the perfect plan. And so when he was like, you're gonna like it, you can't be in control, and also maybe you should stand trial for your crimes. And then she like freaked out. It's like, if you're proposing this like equal, what would you call it? I don't know. If you're gonna shake hands and like sort of merge, then it's hard to be like, well, just forgive everything that's happened before this point.
Yeah.
Like, there has to be like a balance. But it was so, I love watching it so much. And I love the way that she like wouldn't stop like fussing with the hologram or like kind of walking around or like fake completely just standing in front of the holo, like being a little shifty, but like clearly, I mean, I think she also came across as like very like smart. Obviously I never really thought of her like as like a super intelligent villain like before this episode. Now I'm like, oh, she kind of like, she popped off a little bit. Okay.
Yeah I mean I absolutely agree. And again, I just think that I love this summit, like this meeting of political minds, but the show hasn't tried to sell itself really as that. At least I don't think they've put that on screen up until now. They really went for it though this episode. In their discussion, they're talking about uniting the Federation and the Emerald Chain or combining forces, and there's a bunch of little things in there that like, I don't know what it is. I feel like when other Treks are being subtle, maybe they're not being as subtle as I think, and they're really telegraphing something, but sometimes I think that Discovery is so clever you don't know how clever it is, because you pointed out the whole, I doubt that just walking behind the guy would like fool the lie detector, but she is kind of testing it a little bit, I think. And then I love the part where they're eating the apples and they're like, oh, these apples aren't very good. And they're like, they're made of our shit. these are shit apples. And it's just like, I think it kind of represents just like the practicality of his side, which is, I'm comfortable not having it all if I can have something that is not going to require slaves to pick the apples. Like
Yeah,
when she's
literally.
like, you got to admit that you're capitalist. You're already capitalist, which is something that I think the Federation probably should do. I think, they're very like neoliberal and capitalist, I think, in a lot of ways. But then he's like, well, your plan's based on slaves. And you got slavery. Yeah. We're going to get rid of the slaves. It's just nobody's perfect here. And everybody wants to throw something at each other. And I think that's really great. Like when she basically, one of her demands is that the Federation has to declare the Emerald Chain's culture valid and ethical. That's like, it goes to like human rights, and it goes to being like identified and respected by like another party. But it's also like we did it by taking hostages, and we're standing here, with our muddy boots on your carpet, and it's like, wow, that's good stuff.
It was good stuff, and I loved.
Also, sometimes Benedict Cumberbatch blows everybody up and then he beams all the way to Kronos. Sometimes we do that in Trek. But yeah, it's good stuff.
This is such a small part of it, but just like cutting between their like dialogue, and then obviously everyone on the ship like really just like fighting physically to get away. It's just like, obviously it's like, it's not the newest trick in the book, but I thought it was so satisfying. They're
not waiting for the AOK to come. They're like, they're fighting exactly. and escaping like while they're having this negotiation. Yeah. And that maybe it's too much. Maybe Star Trek has to continually change itself and be different stuff, but the show could have been this the whole time. Like if they wanted to lead up to this, we could have been doing this stuff, I think a little more. But there's so many masters to serve, and there's so many stories that they kind of want to tell. And so like the lullaby, is just the song that the kid gets sung to him, right? But like somehow it's spread out for hundreds of years, and it's embedded itself in all these other cultures, and we never really, maybe there is no gotcha, there's no period on the end of that sentence, but we haven't done anything with that, and I'm not sure that we're going to get a chance to before the season wraps up.
I'm like assuming it's like subliminal messaging almost. Like if the kid is hearing the lullaby all the time, and then he has some sort of thing where he like can explode into the universe, and it's like sort of it's like worked itself, not this is an annoying metaphor, like worked itself into like the fabric almost. Like if the sound is like there, like I don't know if this is making sense, because I don't think it makes sense, but like then I think the idea is that it got sort of like absorbed because he spread like everything so far. I'm not sure. No, that's how I was like, you know what? Yeah, okay, I'll get it. That makes sense.
That's a neat idea, I think, because like the idea that, and they don't like, here's a good Trek book idea. Steal this. A similar situation, the dilithium concentration adds like a transmitter, and then this person is trapped and they're slowly going insane. And so for 100 light years all around, like it causes insanity, in the people that live in the systems, in this, so you've got this like tortured area of space where like everyone is crazy and but instead we get a lullaby. That's cool too.
That's cool too. That's all right. That's cool. That's all right.
And a sweet violin solo to be played while an Andorian singer sings. The character of Aurelio likes Andorian singers, so I guess he likes the blues. And I loved also that scene between him and Stamets, where Stamets just immediately... It was weird because usually, okay, you've got a hostage. It's like, you will tell us everything you know. And then Stamets immediately is like, all right, humanize myself. I got a daughter, or I have a child, have a husband. Don't you have children? Look at you got children, huh? Tell me all about your children. And then like the big twist is like, oh, I don't have any pliers. I'm not a bad guy. I'm just going to ask you questions about your tardigrade DNA. Yeah. Oh, you're going to have to rip me apart to get it. No, we'll just grow it. It's like the lowest stakes like interrogation ever. I thought that was great.
Yeah, I was expecting like more of a payoff sooner on that. Like I was expecting a very quick like, all right, he lets Stamets go, and now Stamets is going to or like something. But I think we'll see it in the finale.
Yeah, well, we get it a little bit
some
because...
kind of payoff on their conversation. Yeah, because you watched her kill.
Yeah, you can stay on the bridge and watch mommy kill people. Yeah, and he's like, oh man, she might be a bad guy. Blam, there goes Ren. Yeah, so that's not great. What do you think about the populism or the professed populism of Osira in trying to, give the spore drive to everyone?
I mean, I guess I don't know, it's the future. I was going to say, like, if they're able to replicate it, because I feel like the big problem before was like, oh, we can't make more. We can't figure it out. And then Stamets, like, use this like back door and himself as the experiment and everything.
Yeah.
So I guess
Stamets should like show them pictures of what happened on the Glen. What was it? Yeah. With like people turned inside out and like, maybe you don't want to mess with this.
I guess it's like, it's weird. It's like, if they're going to be like allies and actually like good, and then it's all one big Emerald Federation, then it would be nice to have more spore drives. And then obviously you're not like relying on dilithium, like everything's okay. But it's also like, it seems a little risky, but I feel like also just like the whole like merging is risky to start with.
Yeah.
But I think it's good not to hoard like new technology and knowledge, obviously. It's good to share those things. So I don't know.
I think that would be the default position of Starfleet in centuries past. That something that's beneficial can benefit everybody.
Yeah,
and assuming the best. And in the Emerald Chain, I think it's become clear how large and powerful the Emerald Chain is over the course of the season. They just seemed like a pirate group to me before, but giving it to them, and when they have a leadership that is someone like Osira, then maybe that's not a good idea. But in the past, they just go, oh, everybody should know about this. So it's interesting that they would make they would sort of draw new lines about what they want to share with other people.
Mm-hmm. I feel like they're also in like, they were already in like a tense position. Like, obviously Admiral Salt and Pepper the whole time has been very guarded and all of that. So I feel like you're right. Like in centuries past, obviously everybody, they would have started like churning out the spore drive for, there'd be a whole new fleet with spore drives. But I feel like it's scary when you have so many less like resources and allies. And then you're at this point where you're like making a deal with Osira, and it's like, do I want everyone to have a spore drive?
Yeah.
I don't know, because you could do something like Osira could just like bail and get away. And forever.
But there would be, their raiding attacks for dilithium would stop then, if everybody has access to what they need. So, it's an interesting philosophical question. Something that I think is kind of outmoded as a philosophy in the 32nd century and the situation that they're in is the idea of pre-warp planets. If you've got a planet like Kamala Harris, I don't remember the name of
Kamala Harris
of Book's planet, but okay, so maybe they haven't personally developed like warp engines, but they're pretty much involved in intergalactic politics at this point. And wouldn't you want like worm controlling like spice druids on your side? It kind of seems like maybe this is too important, especially when they are going to be, if you leave them alone, they'll just be victimized by the Emerald Chain. And so the idea that there are these 50 warp or pre-warp societies that are still, we got to leave them alone. It's like, well, maybe just, help them out.
Yeah.
Do you think that Book and his people's plant powers will have anything to do with the spores in the next episode?
Oh my God. I don't know. I never thought of that until right now when you said it.
Why have a plant guy and then spores if you're not going to have a meetup?
They could pilot the new spore drives?
Possibly.
In theory, maybe?
Or just help propagate spores if they need to create more.
Yeah.
We did see that one time where they shot those torpedoes on the planetoid and like grew more spores, but maybe they could cultivate them in some way.
That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, I hope it is. That would be a really like...
Put me down for that. I had... I missed the boat on jacked up dilithium manchild, but I'm not going to miss the boat on spore druids.
Um, do you think, so these past two episodes, I've just been like, and I watched them a couple days ago, so maybe I'm not remembering everything correctly, but my fear the entire time was that, like, the dude that Burnham pretended to be the Hollow with, like the guy, the child,
Yeah.
that he was a Hollow, and that the monster was like what he had actually turned into
Ooh.
after 125 years alone with all the radiation.
Mm.
But then I said that to my dad, and he was like, "Do we know how long Kelpians live for, though?" And I was like, "I don't know, but 125 years seems like a very long time, and all the radiation." And that's still kind of my concern. Although I don't know what point there would be to that now in the finale.
Yeah.
If that's the case, besides, like, what are they going to do about it? Like, about causing another burn or whatever. But,
yeah.
like,
I feel like his youth and his radiation resistance are part of his nature as a dilithium based creature or whatever, because it's one of those things where I think that they tried to explain it in a couple different ways and they kind of overlapped and sort of confused it a little. But we do, we do see that Doug Jones, the real Doug Jones, is
which amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Which he's suffering from the radiation, so Kelpians aren't immune to it. We also see an old man Hollow of a Kelpian with a beard. So is he like 300 years old? It kind of seems like he's just also old. Although we don't focus in on it, but Saru doesn't ever seem that like weirded out that the kid is super old. So I think it could go that they have very long lifespans, but I think it's just a part and parcel of his new nature as whatever he is.
Yeah, well, I guess we also like don't know, because didn't he also say like, oh, nobody that I knew ever grew to be this old because they were all like called before?
That's true. That's true.
So,
and he definitely wouldn't know, although there's nobody there from the 32nd century. Maybe Adira gets there and goes, "Oh no, that's a totally normal age for a Kelpian who's who's not getting Verhara." Yeah.
Oh my god! Can you imagine if Adira was like, "Saru, I mean, you're basically a teenager. Don't you know that?"
Right? Yeah, he's not even. Yeah.
Can you imagine if Adira was like, "Your brain's not even fully formed"?
Right. Yeah. Once your ganglia drop, then you're off to the races. Yeah. We covered just about everything. I want to get to really quick. Bridge crew adventures. Da, da, da,
yes.
Where the bridge squad is doing bridge things. And they've even got their Disney's Robots WALL-E squad now to go with them.
I was going to say, I watched WALL-E last week.
Yeah.
I watched WALL-E last week. And then to see that, I was a little bit like, what's going on? And I've been watching The Mandalorian, and it's just like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
And then their little hands I was like,
Yeah, that's the one thing. There's a lot going on this season. That's good in a lot of ways, but there's a lot that you have to track, and the ship slowly becoming completely self-aware and turning into the girl from the Mummy is something that we have not really been tracking all that much. And to have the effect be, "We're here to help you," it's just like, all right.
And there's 3 of them, and they're blue, red, and gold. I was like, we're getting a little, we're edging into some weird territory.
Yeah.
Not sure how I feel.
They're gonna want a promotion for this. Yeah, so I thought that was funny. I remarked to a friend of mine when I was watching the show that some people, I don't know, obviously it's a Paul Stamets, Michael Burnham, maybe Saru show, and now Hugh's got a bigger role. And the bridge, or Tilly as well. And the bridge people, we don't really get to know them all that much. But I think at this point they have now achieved like TOS level of side character development. Like they're at a Saru level now. And or not Saru, excuse me, Sulu. Easy mistake to make. And I think that good, but boy, Sulu still has a definition as a character. You know, a Chekhov line wouldn't come out of Sulu. A Sulu line wouldn't come out of Uhura. Do you know what I mean? And we literally, with like Bryce and Reese, I want a Bryce and Reese Hardy Boys spinoff where they're just like solving mysteries. They're communicating in Morse code all the time. We still haven't really like reached a level of distinction where they're not all just saying each other's lines.
Yeah, well, it's like what you said. I love that scene because it made them feel like it was like, oh, they do actually function well as a group. They know each other well enough to know exactly what they're doing in that situation, right? With the like keep tapping, don't stop, and then they know to like take everyone down was so satisfying. But that's a really good point. Is it's like they could say either of them could say anybody's line.
Like if they just switched,
like, yep.
If they just switched sides of the bridge one week, like would anybody notice? They'd be like, Mr. Mr. Reese, get over it. Come on, switch it back. Yeah.
Like, but I feel like it's almost like we know Detmer and Owo like a little more, but not even, it's like we know that they're like kind of friends, and we know that Detmer like had just like, you know, like maybe like 14 days of PTSD.
Yeah. The 2-week bug, yeah.
Yeah. You know,
there's a lot of shippers. A lot of Owo, Kayla shippers.
Well, that's the risk of being like
Wo-Shikun. No, K-Wo. K-Wo, there you go.
Oh.
That's their couple name.
You know, when Detmer was all upset, it was always Owo following her out. So, you know, I mean, I see what they're seeing. I see it, but I'm also just like, I still don't know any of them.
It seems like the relationships form not necessarily through proximity of station, but through the parallel line you can draw from their stations. So Detmer and Owo are like buddies, and then whoever you're looking across the bridge at is like, gotcha. Yeah, you're my pal.
We are best friends.
We are, according to Starfleet regulations, we are best friends.
Well, it's like, they had that scene. God, what episode is that where they were like, they went back to like that tree that they all had studied under at different times at the academy. Yeah. It's like, okay, so you like know each other. Like, oh right, you guys like kind of went to school together, sort of.
Sure.
Like, but yeah, I would like some more. That could, you know, give them a few more episodes. Maybe we can have a little bit more. I feel like
they're gonna get more. I'll be back someday for a fourth season. Anything else that you wanted to say about this episode?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I feel like next week, obviously the finale, I'm going to have a lot more feelings, but I really enjoyed it. I don't know. Yeah.
Like all two-part, I mean, it's not a two-parter, but it's definitely hinging on, the return trip in the final episode. But I was I don't know, I was kind of conflicted about it, but I did really like this episode, and it's a lot of the things that I come to Trek for, and I want to see, you know, the resolution too. So it kind of seems like the armistice is off the table at this point, but who knows? Maybe with the dislodging of Osira at the head of the Emerald Chain, the people that are left will want to make a deal, but we'll see. Okay, well, that's it. That's it for our show this week. Thanks for joining us, listeners. And if you like what you hear, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at EISTPOD for updates and to get notified when new episodes of both Enterprising Individuals and Discoverage are released. You can tweet to us on the show by using the hashtag Discoverage, or you can email us at eistpod@gmail.com. And while you're on the internet, why not head to your listening platform of choice and subscribe to our show feed and give us a rating and a review. It really helps us out. If you want to help the show grow, you can stop by our Patreon page at patreon.com/EISTpod. And as always, if you like the show, tell a friend. Discoverage will return on January 7th, next week, for the finale episode of Season 3 of Star Trek Discovery, entitled That Hope Is You, Part 2. We'll be here next Thursday to cover it, and going live once again at 7 p.m. Central, so you can join us then. You can follow us on Twitter or Facebook to get notified when we're live and broadcasting. In the meantime, check out our main show called Enterprising Individuals at enterprisingindividuals.com. Every Wednesday on the show, I and a special guest to discuss in excruciating detail a selected episode from a Star Trek series. We also have news from the Trek sphere and interviews of special guests. And currently the show is on hiatus for the holidays, but you can listen to our 5 seasons and 260 episodes of past content for your Star Trek fix. Not quite to the level of 800 yet, but someday. And you can hear that at enterprisingindividuals.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Ella, thanks as always for joining me to talk about tonight's episode of Star Trek Discovery, and remind people where they can find you online.
My home podcast is called Generations Geek. So we are Generations Geek on social media and wherever you listen to podcasts. We're on like kind of a COVID hiatus.
Sure.
So we'll have some new episodes soon. But until then, you can check it out. We have everything. We have Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, Planet of the Apes, all of it. So
Yeah.
come by.
Yeah, I've been looking at the news for the Amazon Lord of the Rings show that they're working on, and apparently they're looking to make it sexy.
Make it say. Was that the headline?
Well, no, they're doing one of those. Remember, like a while back when HBO had there was a news story about HBO's casting notice for Westworld was like, you know, actors and actresses must be comfortable with extreme nudity and sexual situations. It's like, wow, what's my cut of this? Like, what are we setting up here? But apparently Amazon has done the same, and they are looking for actors who are comfortable with nudity.
Ooh, well, I hadn't read that, and I hope it doesn't go too far.
Yeah, I'm wondering what we're working up to here.
Like, body positivity, all that. I be naked. That's great, but it's Lord of the Rings. I don't know how much like Game of Thrones sort of level of content we need in like a Lord of the Rings show, but
well,
I'm sure we'll have plenty to say about it.
Yeah, and I can't wait for that. I just as like a Tolkien fan to Tolkien fan, you know, if you want to go deep on this, and that's maybe the wrong phrase to use, but I'm thinking that maybe since it's set in the Second Age, maybe they're shooting like, you know, when Anatar, the Lord of Gifts, you know, really gets up the craw of the men of the West. And turns their kingdom into, a decadent sort of Game of Thrones type world. Maybe this is late in the Second Age, right? Like they get all pervy and stuff like that. And so maybe they're planning ahead. That's what they're going to be shooting there.
Oh God, I kind of hope not, but we'll see.
Anyway,
not too much. Some maybe is okay, but
that's my theory. Yeah,
Star Trek show.
Some, but not much. Yeah. Well, anyway, check that out at generationsgeek.com, and that is it for us. Thanks for listening, everybody. We're signing off, and this is Aaron for Ella saying, "Live long and prosper." Okay.
Yeah.
Nice work.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, good episode. I'm so excited for next week. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah. I don't know if it's probably just going to be a regular length episode, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. They've got a lot.
We'll get some payoff.
Yeah, they've got a lot to pay off, so hopefully they can pull it off.